Hey guys, Mike Fronteri here, back with another retirement theory video. So today I'm going to be tackling a big question. How does Bitcoin work? So whether you've heard of Bitcoin from either the news or friends or wherever, it's a fascinating topic that is changing the financial landscape as we speak. This is not a really deep dive into the inner workings of Bitcoin. I just want to give you the basics, enough so that you can get the concept of what it is and why people own it. So if you're a hardcore Bitcoin investor already, this video is probably not for you. And by the way, this is not an endorsement of Bitcoin or any kind of cryptocurrency as an investment. It's purely an educational resource. Let's start with, what is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is just like any other type of currency that you're already used to. It is designed to be a store of value that you can use to exchange for goods or services in the marketplace. And what makes Bitcoin truly unique is that there are no physical coins or gold or any tangible asset at all to represent a unit of it. And what makes Bitcoin truly unique is that transactions between two parties happen directly and securely, meaning there is no banks, there is no governments, no financial intermediaries of any kind. And it's the only type of currency like that. So with traditional currency, you can have direct transactions, but the only way to do so is when you physically hand somebody a bill or bring a truckload of gold or a suitcase full of pesos. So you can start to already see the logistical challenges in making a direct payment without a financial intermediary. And that is one of the primary issues that digital currency in general is trying to solve. Okay, so we get that Bitcoin is a digital currency, but how does Bitcoin work? So, what does it mean to say, I have a Bitcoin? So to answer this, we have to go back to the beginning. So Bitcoin was created back in 2009 by an anonymous person or group of people that went by the name Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi created the entire framework for how this digital currency would operate. Everything from how Bitcoin would be created to how transactions could occur directly and securely. Satoshi then wrote programming that actually created this network where these transactions and creation of Bitcoin actually occurred. And at the core of this Bitcoin network, and in fact every digital currency, is a blockchain. And so to have a firm grasp on what Bitcoin is, you need to understand how a blockchain works. So we can think of a blockchain as a relatively simple concept in that it is just a transaction history of all the transactions that have occurred on a network. So when people talk about a blockchain, let's say for Bitcoin, they are talking about the entire transaction history of Bitcoin. So how big is that full transaction history? Well, as of November 2024, it's about 617 gigabytes. So that's really big, but it isn't unmanageable. Most computers today can handle that. It would be about 75,000 to 125,000 photos. I think my mother has more than that on her cell phone. But that's a little bit deceiving because it's all in plain text, which does not take up a lot of computer space. Now, if you were to print out the ledger, that's a different story. It would take, in 10-point font, it would take about 137 million pages. Now, how much is that? Well, if you stacked them up in a big pile, it would be about 45,000 feet high, which is about 1.5 times the height of Mount Everest. So it's pretty big. Now, this transaction history is not only enormous, but it's also critical to understanding how Bitcoin works. Because in Bitcoin, no balances are ever stored. The only way that you know how much Bitcoin you or someone else owns is to look back through the entire transaction history to see how much Bitcoin has been transferred from one party to another. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say Jerry wants to send Ginny 2.5 Bitcoins. Maybe he had 4 Bitcoins to start and Ginny had 1. So Jerry transfers the 2.5 Bitcoins to Ginny. Well, technically, Jerry's anonymous Bitcoin wallet transfers 2.5 Bitcoins to Ginny's anonymous Bitcoin wallet. Now, this transaction is confirmed and recorded in this permanent transaction history. Now, Jerry is left with 1.5 Bitcoins and Ginny 3.5 Bitcoins. And both Jerry and Ginny know of their new balance because they can trace back through Bitcoin's full transaction history to see all the credits and debits. Now, of course, the Bitcoin software will do this transaction history search for you so that you don't have to comb through the 137 million pages yourself. So in other words, and this is key, it is the blockchain or the transaction history itself that tells you and everyone else how much Bitcoin they and you have. So who's in control of this transaction history or blockchain? Well, actually, anybody who wants to be is. The blockchain is what is called a distributed ledger, meaning anyone and everyone can see 100% of the transaction history at any given time. Imagine a giant spreadsheet that is constantly being updated and redistributed to everybody. Now, as new transactions come in, they get verified and are packaged into blocks of about 2,000 transactions. These blocks then get linked in chronological order, forming a chain, hence the term blockchain. Once a block is added, it gets distributed to everyone on the network and it can never be changed. So why are so many people interested in verifying all these transactions, putting them into blocks that form this blockchain? Well, Satoshi had written into the Bitcoin code that you are paid fees for certifying a block of transactions. So now not every computer in the network certifies every block. In fact, only one computer is the one that is chosen for each block that is added to the blockchain. So how does that happen? Well, it's a bit complicated, but basically every computer trying to create a block has to close out their block with a code. And creating a code that is acceptable requires solving a mathematical puzzle, which is largely based on chance. And so these computers will constantly attempt to publish their block, trying code after code after code, sometimes trillions of attempts until someone gets one that fits the criteria. And that lucky computer user, who is referred to as a miner, is credited with some new Bitcoin. And in fact, that fee is the way that the first Bitcoins were created and new Bitcoins are created within the system. So to recap, a Bitcoin is just a digital record that exists on a really long, unchangeable transaction history. So what makes it worth anything? I mean, it's literally just a made-up currency. Well, similar to many currencies out there, including our own dollar, it's only worth something because somebody else says it has value. As Bitcoin has grown in popularity and acceptance over the years, it has also increased the faith that people have that someone else will accept it as a form of currency. I mean, really, nothing else fundamentally has changed with what a Bitcoin is since its inception in 2009. In the early days of Bitcoin, in early 2010, Bitcoin's often traded for less than a penny a piece. And in fact, in May of that year, there's a now famous story that a developer traded 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. So as people slowly recognized the attributes of Bitcoin that made it unique and beneficial as a type of currency, things like security, anonymity, and scarcity, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins ever mined, it grew in acceptance. And as its acceptance grew, so too did its value. And now here we are in December 2024, and Bitcoin is worth almost $100,000 per Bitcoin. So that's the basics of how Bitcoin works. You got questions for me? Let me know. Come visit me at www.retirementtheory.com or send me an email at mike@retirementtheory.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.